excellence, research parks, incubations, incubation centers, hubs are already there to support the startups which are in this domain. But we have to focus on the quality pipeline so that in future, after 2 or 3 years, the research can be now converted to more usable products. And this GDC program will be more focused on the customer discovery part. So the researchers will be just asked to go and interact with the customers, their industry partners, what they are requiring, and then try to change the direction of the research if it is required, so that they meet the industry requirements and the standards. So this is, and this public-private partners DST has been doing in past also, like we have partnered with Lockheed Martin, Intel, and many of the corporates. And we had very exciting programs in maybe last couple of decades. Like this Lockheed Martin program went for around 12 years. And this was IDI scouting program, and then deep tech startups also, I mean, IP-based startups also were churning out of these kind of programs. In almost a decade back, there was a fund also launched by DST in PPP mode, where IP-based startups were funded, and 6 startups, it was almost 10 years back, and 6 startups came out of it, and it was a partnership fund where 50% was given by DST, and 50% was given by NASSCOM and IKP and ATEL and all. SIDBI was there. So this kind of pilot scale testing already has been done, right? And with this kind of knowledge, we are confident, like in future also we can bring this partnership to give good results in this domain.
Excellent. Yeah, and then I think it's very important. Yesterday this question was asked in the audience, and I also shared a perspective that, you know, many universities, almost every university focuses so much on placement. And so they work with many companies across the country to get them to come and hire their students, you know, as employees. But there's very little effort being done to draw these same companies to innovation and entrepreneurship and research related activities of the university. And there needs to be a proactive reach out from the universities to be able to attract companies and tell them what is happening in our startup ecosystem and the importance of deep tech startups that can come out of the university research, and thereby increase the funding sources from the private sector.
Yeah, correct. So research parks are almost on the same track, and they are doing their job in this domain, because when these companies are there in the campuses, like they direct the research which is required by the.
So coming to you, Jitendra ji, you know, biotech research is somewhat different in terms of the requirements. One is there is tremendous compliance requirements, and one of the gestation period is because you want to make sure that they comply. And especially if biotech startups want to address the global market, they need to be globally compliant. So what are the initiatives being taken by BIRAC to enable this global compliance requirement, as well as any global collaborations that help you in being able to address this particular challenge?
The regulatory compliance is one of the most important hurdle, an enabler also, but hurdle because sometimes it may become very, very cumbersome, and enabler because it's required for the sector to grow. Because if you suppose talk about genetic engineered crops, we know what the fate has been. I mean, it is under cold shell still. There may be some progress in genetic engineered mustard, which has been given some kind of field trials permission. But actually for food crops, we still have not been able to overcome that. So then how the startup will come here? Why the industry will play a role here? Because they know the field is regulatory, that Krishna Allah told, no, that if the regulatory hurdle is there, no investor, nothing will happen. So regulatory compliances has a huge role to play in innovation, and it is different for different sectors. I talked about genetic engineering, but same thing may apply to food for example, food sector. Similar maybe in the industrial sector, or cell and gene therapy, cancer, and so many other fields. BIRAC is not a body to actually create, we are not regulators as such. Regulator is a CDSCO. But then we realized this problem, and as a stakeholder in this major stakeholder and enabler, we thought that what we can do. So we have created a body within BIRAC, which is regulatory and public policy, public advocacy group, which caters to the need of this whole regulatory compliances and other things. So what we do here, mechanism is that we talk to the startup who is facing the problem. This is a first hub we do every month actually, and the startups, and we request or invite members from CDSU, the regulator, and to talk to each other, and especially we are also there to mediate and see where the regulatory challenges are there and how it can be solved. So this is one. Second is that to create awareness among startups and industries also, because sometimes these are unfounded also. It's not that all the regulatory challenges that keep on hearing is actually has some solid basis. Sometimes what happens is they are not aware of what are the regulatory pathways, and for that we need to educate them. So we create these sessions across India where regulatory challenges, etc., how to overcome that, and we call CDSU people also. I have observed that some of these startups are misguided by some consultants, etc., to milk money. They will say, no, this you do, blah blah, all these things, and it may not be required. So these are some of the issues I'm flagging, because these are something that I am observing. The other thing that we are trying to do is to create policy papers or papers where regulatory pathways can be elucidated very nicely. For example, biosimilars. DBT has come up with biosimilars, guidelines, and along with CDSC, etc. So functional foods, for example, cell and gene therapy. So as the technology is emerging, new and new fields are emerging, it is very, very understandable that the present guidelines may not be able to cater to these fields. For example, AI. How do you actually handle this in the regulatory framework? So what BIRAC is trying to do is we have subcategorized the whole field, life sciences area and biotechnology, and we have tried to set up a team to look into it and create a white paper. Directly, we are in touch with CDSU to give them all the inputs. And we also hold industry stakeholders meet very often. For example, while formulating this BioE3 policy, we had consulted 100 times, maybe more than that, the various groups, various cell and gene therapy, functional foods, industrial biotechnology, agricultural biotechnology, and all, and took the inputs from the industry also, because that is, we have to take inputs from the industry to create this framework. And I think it's very, very successful program, and implementation has to happen definitely. And so those steps are being taken proactively. And what I invite, or what I request from the incubation managers and industry partners is to contact or always be in touch of the government also. Write mails. So, for example, people are very quick to say that government is not doing this, then, but when we actually send these policy papers for public review on websites, we get very few responses. That is so why people are not forthcoming and participating. It's not only criticizing, but you have to also participate and see, okay, these are the problems we are facing. Let us, do this and that and all that.
So I think you brought a very important point, and that is, can a forum like this, like ISBA, take leadership in ensuring that as an outcome of such conferences or during the course of a year, we are coming up with a very concrete set of policy recommendations on a collective basis, which is vertical. They can be, incubators, deep tech startups from a DST point of view, or from a BIRAC point of view, or even from a hardware point of view, and come up with, because this is the forum where you know what policy is inhibiting you from further progress. And therefore, an outcome of this should be a set of policies that is coming up every year so that we can continuously improve. And I know we are running short of time, so we'd love to have this conversation going. But one last question to you, Joginder. India is placing so much importance today on manufacturing, make in India. And there are many incentives like the PLI and so on and so forth, which is happening. What do you think? But startups, it's not enough for them to prototype and come up with a minimum viable product. The ability for them to scale their manufacturing is so very important. Are we geared up for it at all, number one? And what role industry has in addressing this challenge? If we can quickly address that, because I think many startups that I know, they get stuck up at that point where they're not able to scale their manufacturing.
Thank you. I'll just, there are 3 quick points for this. First of all, the government is doing enough for manufacturing, but many startups are not aware. There are a number of good MSME schemes which they are not aware also. For example, there are subsidies available for women entrepreneurs. There are special zones where people can set up manufacturing plants. In fact, in some cases, there is even buying policies. For example, if you make something which is on the GEM portal, and it is actually you are import substituting some other component which is being imported right now, so you get preference. But many startups are not aware of this actually. So this is one of the things we are also trying to do now is educate startups about the manufacturing and MSME policies of the government. Then the second point is that startups need access to more funding. And for that, our VCs actually, which I also personally know, our VCs are more focused on scalable asset-light models. Unfortunately, for manufacturing, you cannot have a scalable asset-light model. So one of the things here is that we need to encourage more hardware-focused VCs to either be originating from India or come from abroad. So that is also one of the things we are looking at. And the third point, of course, is that startups need to tie up with industries. Bigger industries should play the role of a big brother or a big sister, so that they can encourage and incubate startups from within them to do more manufacturing. And this can also be done very well by PSUs actually, because PSUs have the funds for this, and they also have the ability to sustain startups for a longer period of time. So, thank you.
Great. So I do also want to recommend to ISBA, based upon this conversation we have had, that you should have quite a few industry leaders attending this conference and listening to the issues that are there and how they can support. Because without that support and without that collaboration and integration, and on this note, the importance of deep tech startups and the need for deep tech startups is very high, because as Dr. Ella said, there is innovation only when there is demand. And when we are a country of 1 billion people, and I often say this, with 1 million challenges. But the 1 million challenges are 1 million opportunities for us to address the others. And that is the opportunity. And I just want you to give one word of advice or last suggestion to all the incubators, if you would like to share something. On an encouraging note.
So, already all are very motivated, and you have seen the impact that they have created. So, I mean, the future is collaboration, as already said, and the PPP is the thing which is going to survive, and that is to be